What's up, amigos? My name is Gabriel Paredes, and welcome to the Gabe on the Grind podcast. So today we're going to be talking about a crucial mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make. Whether they're aspiring entrepreneurs, whether they're current entrepreneurs and are starting to acquire a little bit of success, there's this trap that many of us fall into. I actually fell into it. I'm going to share this with you. Hopefully it helps you out, my friends. So here we go. Hey everyone, thank you very much for sticking around. Again, my name is Gabriel Paredes and welcome to my channel. Now, today I'm going to talk to you about this trap. Now, before I do so, my friends, let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm also an entrepreneur. I've been in business for myself for many years. For the past 14 years, we own a financial planning company. We're in 25 states. We're close to 1,400 agents strong and growing. I'm also a restaurant and bar owner here in Los Angeles, and we're also growing that portfolio. The two most notable restaurants is Nativo in Highland Park and also Chella's in Boyle Heights. So if you're ever in LA, stop by and say hello. Now, let's get right into it, my friends. Many of you may or may not know that I've spent over 20 years of my life studying successful people from all walks of life, from all different businesses, just trying to understand the way they think, the way they do things, the way they navigate through their entrepreneurial journeys. One of the big reasons why, my friends, is because I personally didn't have a mentor. I grew up in a less than privileged background, and I had to learn a lot of what I know about business on my own, with my own failures, my own struggles, and my own experiences. So here's something that I learned. I learned that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that fall into the trap of keeping up with the Joneses. So today, my intention is to help you tell the Joneses to shut the fuck up, because it doesn't do anybody any good. Now, I know for a fact, because I was part of this world where we go into a business and we're climbing up the corporate ladder, or we are acquiring a little bit more success in our life, in our businesses, and we start falling into the trap of trying to impress and trying to find happiness in material possessions. And this keep up with the Joneses world that we live in just makes it so much harder to stay away from that trap, especially with social media. Social media is so powerful nowadays, my friends, that some of us don't even know how we feel for the day until we actually ask social media, right? So with that being said, I'm going to share some thoughts with you. I'm going to share a story with you, and hopefully you find some value in what we're about to talk about. Now, I was a young 28-year-old that was making a ton of money. I remember at 28 years old was one of my highest income years. I made $750,000 that year. Money that I never thought in a million years that somebody like me, with my background and my resources and the lack of mentorship that I had, could possibly acquire that much income. I owned a financial planning company at the time, a small office. I still own a financial planning company. We switched it up a bit. And I also owned a mortgage company at the time. And we were killing it. We were doing great. And I remember that I started just trying to analyze the people around me. The people that were perceived to be successful, how they dressed, what they drove, how they lived, how they spoke. Just everything that they did and how they operated. Now, unfortunately, at the time, my friends, I had a lot of people that were very flashy people. They were about the flash. Many of them were high flash, no cash. I don't know if you guys have heard that before, but that's what happens. There's a lot of flash, very little cash at the end of the ball game when you operate in this way. You hear things like this. You hear things like, you got to sell the dream, right? Now, we're processing this. Now, keep in mind, sell the dream. So what's the dream? Well, I guess the dream is having a bunch of things. We say, you got to fake it till you make it. I don't know if you guys have heard that. Or you got to act as if. Now, the problem is that a lot of these different taglines, if you will, could work if you use them properly and if you have the ability to process them properly. Now, unfortunately, with a lot of green new money, a lot of people that come from less than privileged backgrounds like myself, we started acquiring this success and we start believing that having the things such as the big car and the big house and the nice watch and the nice shoes and the nice suits are what makes people successful. And if you're not careful, you get yourself in very ugly, deep waters, my friend. So I'll tell you a story. When I was 28 years old, as I mentioned, mortgage company, I remember my very first big purchase. I won a trip to St. Martin. It was a beautiful island. And I remember on the way there, you had to make like 3 stops. And we stopped at this airport in Puerto Rico. And when we stopped at this airport had a very nice watch store. They sold all kinds of really fancy watches. And I remember I had my eye on this Breitling watch. And some of the guys that I went with, successful guys, were buying watches. And they were dropping, $10,000, $15,000 on these watches. And I said, you know what? I deserve this watch. So I went out there and I bought myself a $10,000 Breitling watch. And I remember for the next maybe month or two, everywhere I went, when I walked into the office, people were saying, hey, I heard you bought that watch. Everybody's, man, that's a nice watch. And I started feeling addicted to the compliments. I started feeling like that was success. The more compliments I got, the more success I must be acquiring, right? So that almost spiraled out of control. So before you know it, about a year into this thing, I had a box in my bedroom with about 4 watches, each one about $7,000 to $15,000. I had about $50,000 in watches in a box that shook to kind of keep them moving, right? And they were just sitting there. I remember that in the office, everybody started buying 750 BMWs, S-Class Mercedes. So I went out there and I said, I want to be a little different. I went out there and I bought myself an Audi A8. This thing was beautiful. It's black with that European kind of orangey brown interior. And I felt I was on top of the world. Every time I would drive that car, sometimes at a stoplight, people would give me a thumbs up. They would give me props for this car. And I was like, man, this is success, right? So as I was operating in business, I felt myself subconsciously, because I wasn't even aware, that I started falling into this keeping up with the Joneses mentality, keeping up with the guys at the office, keeping up with this false illusion of success. Now, being in business, those of you that are already entrepreneurs, you know that you have good months and you have bad months. You have good quarters and bad quarters, good years and bad years. Now, what a lot of people new to success don't know is that you will have times where it's not all pretty and successful and money's rolling in. You sometimes hit a wall. Maybe regulations change. Maybe a new administration comes in and things change there. Interest rates change. Whatever market conditions change and that affect your business. Now, if you live in this keep up with the Joneses mentality, what you're going to find yourself in when you hit these roadblocks in your life is that you're going to find yourself having a bunch of stuff, but having very little money, having very little reserves, right? So today, my friends, the reason I'm extremely passionate about this particular topic is because I found myself losing it all. I mean, it was a very dark time in my life. I literally, one of the most embarrassing moments in my life, I remember it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I had just started dating my wife now. She was my girlfriend at the time. We were about 6 months into a relationship. She stayed at my home that day. And all of a sudden, 4 in the morning, there's all this noise outside and there's lights. And before you know it, I go outside, I'm in my PJs, and there's a tow truck repoing my Audi A8. And I remember I just said to myself, my goodness, what is happening here? I wasn't prepared for this. I wish somebody would have told me that these things don't mean shit. At the end of the ballgame, they don't mean anything, right? So now, one of the things that really helped me out process this, going through these emotional periods in my life where it was depression and anger and just guilt, right? At the end of the ball game, I was able to gather my thoughts and say, look, I started with nothing and I was able to build. And through reading and developing and growing myself, I put myself in a very positive state of mind again, right? Not everybody has the ability to do that. That's why a lot of people fall into depression. That's why a lot of people go bankrupt. That's why a lot of people have these heroic stories at one point in their life, one chapter in their life, but then the next chapter, and the following chapter, and the following chapter, it's all disaster. It's all downhill spiral. And before you know it, they can't bounce back. So here's some questions that I want to tell you, and I'm going to give you a small analogy here, okay? I'm a numbers guy. I've been in the financial planning business for many years now. I own a financial planning company like I mentioned earlier. Now, there's two guys. One of them is you, one of them is someone else. One of them is your buddy. Your buddy drives a $400 a month car. Now, this car is not a luxurious car by any means, but it's a nice car. No one's frowning upon the car, right? He's not getting thumbs up at red lights. He's not getting a bunch of high fives at the office for the amazing car that he has. But he has a nice, decent car that gets him from point A to point B, and it's a nice car. Now, you, on the other hand, you go out there and you buy yourself an Audi A8, just like I did, right? And you go out there and you're paying $1,000 a month for this car, right? Now, there's a $600 difference. He's paying $400, you're paying $1,000. Now, let's just say, for example, your friend had a purpose different than yours. He was very clear about his future, about his goals, about his purpose, and he had something called discipline, right? And let's just say, for example, he saved those $600. He just put them away in a piggy bank, right? And at the end of the 72-month purchase of this car, you and him now own the car, right? He now has $43,200 sitting in this account somewhere, right? That's a difference in payment. $600 a month multiplied by 72, that's $43,000 less that he paid to get from point A to point B in a vehicle, right? Now, let's just say, for example, he takes those $43,000, he applies the rule of 72. Rule of 72 is how compound interest works. Those of you that understand finances know that this is a mathematical equation that gives you an estimated amount of time that your money will double. So he puts it in an account that's giving him a 7% rate of return. Now, what's going to happen is interesting because 20 years later, that $43,000, he did not put another dime into this account, is now $167,170. Now think about this, right? 20 years sounds like a long time, but 20 years comes and goes, my friends. Now, 20 years later, right, this guy has $167,000 and some change. Now think about what you have. Now, let's just say, for example, he let it roll for another 10 years. And 30 years later, that money would have turned into $328,849.42. So just think about sitting, having dinner with your wife or your husband, and you're saying to yourself, man, you know what? Driving that $400 a month car that long time ago, look at the savings that we put away. Now we have $328,000 and some change. Now, what do you have? Let me tell you something. You might have maybe fond memories of getting a thumbs up at a red light. You might have some memories about getting the attention of the hot girl at the nightclub that you happened to go to that night because they saw your car, right? Or this attention that is unnecessary attention that doesn't mean anything. Those people that are giving you thumbs up are never going to pay your bills. You don't know them. They don't know you. With social media nowadays, people post a bunch of things. They don't know you. You don't know them. They're never going to do anything for you, right? Other than like your picture maybe. So one guy has fond memories, right? Fond memories, I should say. The other guy has $328,000, right? That's just one example, my friends. But the key here is to not fall into this trap, right? I dove deep into this trap, my friend. I had the watches, I had the shoes, I had the $700 Ferragamo shoes, I had a closet full of these guys, right? I had the $1,300 suits. I remember back in the day, everybody at the office, like a bunch of idiots, we were all going to the same guy, and we were paying about $1,100, $1,300, $1,000 a suit. And I remember I had a closet full of suits, right? That I almost gave away, all of them, to my dad or donated them or just got rid of them. They don't mean anything now, right? So here is the message for the day. Here's how you want to process this, right? You want to tell yourself and you want to ask yourself this. Are you working, sacrificing, especially those of you that come from new money, especially those of you that had to just fight through every single success step in your life? Now, are the things that you have defining your success? Is the sacrifice, the risks, the ups and downs that you have made to get to the level that you're at, is it defined by having a nice car in the driveway? You got to ask yourself those questions. Now, if the answer is yes, hey, I don't agree with it, but more power to you. If the answer is no, we got to reevaluate. So let's keep going here. Now, everything starts with discipline. Let me just start by saying that. Everything starts with discipline, right? You have to have a clear game plan. What is my 1-year plan? What is my 2-year plan, right? Success nowadays is not defined by material possessions. It's defined differently nowadays, right? For the successful people. For successful people. For unsuccessful-minded people, it's defined by material items. Successful people, you're gonna learn. I'll tell you this quick story. I remember that my wife and I ended up buying a loft. And we moved into a building called the Barker Block Building in downtown Los Angeles in the Arts District. And this building was beautiful. We ended up selling the loft, unfortunately. That was a mistake. But we moved into this building, and everybody in this building had a business. There was a lot of actors. There was a lot of athletes in this business. There was a lot of people with a lot of money in this building. There still is, right? It's one of the most sought after buildings in all of Los Angeles, the Barker Block Building. And I remember I drove in there and driving by all of the cars in the parking lot, it was rare that you ever saw an S-Class Mercedes. I don't think I ever saw one. It was rare that you saw a 750 BMW. It was rare that you saw any type of luxury car. Everybody was driving just regular cars, nice cars, but just regular cars. One thing that I learned by living there is that successful people think different. They determine success differently than unsuccessful people. So ask yourself these questions. Is your goal to get a thumbs up when you're driving around in that car? If that is your goal, go get yourself into a $1,000 a month car, right? Is your goal to have a lot of high flash, but very little cash? If that's your goal, hey, more power to you. Now, if your goal is to have financial freedom, right? Start reevaluating what you spend money on. Start reevaluating that and seeing how much value does that bring your life, your business, your family, right? Is your goal to have money in the bank to prepare you for the bad times? And bad times do come. Think about this. Look at 2020. No one was expecting what happened in 2020. How many of you guys were ready for that, right? Is your goal to have less stress, right? Is your goal to have the freedom of not being tied to a bunch of stuff? Now, one of the weird things that happens when you start buying a lot of things is that you almost become a hostage to those things, right? I remember I had this beautiful home at the same time that the Audi A8 story came about. I had this beautiful home. I was single. I had a girlfriend, but I wasn't married. And it was 4-bedroom, 4-bath, 20,000 square foot lot. In Los Angeles, that's a big lot. And it had a pool, jacuzzi, fire pit, and it had a barbecue pit. And I never enjoyed it because I always had to work my ass off to be able to pay for all the stuff that I had, right? So if your goal is not to be hostage to things, you got to reevaluate what you're spending money on, right? Having the freedom feels good, my friends. So I'll leave you with that. I hope you guys got some value out of this. Tell the Joneses to shut the fuck up. And let's move on, my friends. Let's succeed. Let's win. Let's make 2021 the best year that we've had. Thank you. Cheers.